GMB star breaks down in tears on air after Adil Ray's Manchester synagogue attack remark. Good Morning Britain presenters Adil Ray and Kate Garraway continued reporting on the aftermath of the synagogue attack in Manchester. Good Morning Britain presenter Adil Ray faced backlash from his co-star after he questioned where Jewish people would go if they fear living in the UK, while another was left in tears. Adil and Kate Garraway fronted the ITV program on Friday, the day after a man murdered 2 people in the Manchester synagogue terrorist attack. Jihad al-Shami, who was wearing a vest which looked like an explosive device, carried out the horrific attack at Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. He killed Adrian Dalby, 53, and Melvin Kravitz, 66, and left 3 other people with serious injuries. Al-Shami was shot dead on the scene by police. On Good Morning Britain, Adil and Kate were joined by former Labour Party member Luciana Berger. Adil read out a tweet from his co-star Robert Rinder, who said, "Many Jews cannot imagine a future here." He asked Luciana, "That is striking, the fact that somebody like Rob would say that Jewish communities don't feel safe. Where would they go next? It's not something we should even consider. Are you fearful?" Clearly unhappy with Adil's choice of words, Luciana hit back, "It's striking that you just said where would we go next. It is a genuine fear of people in this country about whether they have a safe place to live, and I really wish that wasn't the case, but it existed before today, and I know it will be amplified in the wake of these horrific events. This was an attack on Britain's Jews. Yes, we're Jewish, but I'm very proud to British. This is an attack on Britain. But we do have a responsibility to all minorities in this country, and we have a responsibility to ensure that everyone has a safe place to live." The presenters were also joined by Ava Evans and Salma Shah. When asked what their message would be following the attacks, Salma became visibly moved as she broke down. "To be honest, I feel so upset about this entire sentiment because Luciana is a parliamentarian, of course, she's British, of course, she belongs here. I'm so sorry," she said, wiping away her tears. Allowing Salma a moment to compose herself, Kate assured, "I think that's how we all feel. We don't want to be feeling this for any community this morning." "Your emotions say it all, Salma." Responding with her message for the nation, Salma said, "There shouldn't be any place for extremism in Britain. It really is heartbreaking." Luciana added, "It's not just about extremism, because extremism is the worst exposition of what discrimination can become. Actually, even low levels of discrimination and racism have an impact." Good Morning Britain has long been the stage where politics, culture, and raw emotion collide. But Friday's broadcast veered into deeply uncomfortable territory after presenter Adil Ray made a remark about the recent Manchester synagogue attack, sparking an extraordinary live television moment that left one of his co-stars in tears and viewers across the nation divided. The show began as any other weekday morning, upbeat headlines, a review of the day's newspapers, and the familiar banter between the presenters. But as the program transitioned to a somber segment covering the horrific incident at a Manchester synagogue, the mood shifted dramatically. The attack, which has left communities shaken and questions swirling about safety, religious tolerance, and political responsibility, was already a heavy subject. Yet when Adil Ray attempted to frame the discussion with his own interpretation, meant, some argue, to highlight wider social tensions, his words struck a nerve not only with viewers but with the very colleagues sitting beside him. Adil's remark that changed the mood. Ray, known for his outspoken commentary, began by condemning the violence outright. But it was his follow-up remark that detonated the emotional storm. "This isn't just about one extremist," he said, leaning into the camera with his trademark intensity. "It's about a society that keeps turning a blind eye to where hate is festering. And if we're honest, too many people only speak up when it suits them. Even within the political establishment, sometimes even within our own media, we fail to confront this poison head-on." Though his words might have been intended as a broader indictment of systemic failures, the delivery came across to some as accusatory and overly politicized. His co-presenter, whose name producers have asked to withhold while she recovers from the incident, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Moments later, her eyes welled up. "Adil," she interjected, her voice breaking, I think we need to be careful. There are families watching right now, Jewish families, people in Manchester, people in grief. They don't need to hear us turn this into a political fight. They just need compassion." Her words, halting and visibly shaken, were followed by a long silence. Then, overcome by emotion, she lowered her head and began to cry. The cameras lingered awkwardly for a few seconds before producers cut to a commercial break. The aftermath on air. When the program returned, the atmosphere was palpably strained. Adil Ray, visibly unsettled by what had happened, offered a quick clarification. "I want to be absolutely clear," he said. "My comments were not meant to cause upset. My heart is with those families who are grieving, and with the Jewish community in Manchester and across the UK. I apologize if what I said added to anyone's pain this morning." But his co-star struggled to regain composure. Though she continued with the program, her voice carried the fragility of someone holding back further tears. Later in the broadcast, she addressed viewers directly. "Sometimes we forget, sitting here on the sofa, how raw these tragedies feel to the people living through them. I'm sorry. It just hit me hard this morning." Viewer reaction, outrage and sympathy. Social media exploded within minutes of the segment airing. Clips of the emotional exchange began circulating widely on X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook, drawing thousands of comments. Some applauded Adil Ray for speaking truth to power, praising him for refusing to sanitize the conversation. "Adil is right. Hate doesn't come out of nowhere," wrote one user. "If politicians and media don't call it out, we're part of the problem." But others were furious. "Disgraceful moment from Adil Ray this morning," another viewer fumed. "A community has just been attacked and instead of solidarity, he made it about politics." No wonder his co-presenter was in tears. Community leaders also weighed in. One Manchester rabbi, speaking to a local radio station, said he understood both perspectives. "We need tough conversations about how we got here," he admitted. "But there's also a time for silence, for empathy, for just standing with people. I don't think everyone on that sofa was on the same page." ITV bosses under pressure. ITV executives now face mounting pressure to address the fallout. Insiders at Good Morning Britain revealed that senior producers held an emergency meeting shortly after the show went off air. "It was not the broadcast we wanted," said one source. "Live TV is unpredictable, but this was a particularly raw and distressing moment. We're making sure our team has the support they need." There is no suggestion that Adil Ray will be disciplined, but the incident has reignited debates about his presenting style. Some critics argue that his tendency to push hard-hitting commentary risks overshadowing the show's responsibility to remain balanced and sensitive. Others insist he is precisely what GMB needs: a fearless voice willing to tackle uncomfortable truths. A microcosm of Britain's divisions. What happened on that sofa, in many ways, mirrors the divisions playing out across the country. The synagogue attack has prompted questions not just about extremist violence but about whether Britain is becoming less safe for minority communities. For some, Adil Ray's fiery commentary was a rallying cry to wake up to those realities. For others, it felt like pouring salt into an open wound. The co-star's tears, meanwhile, embodied the human cost behind the headlines: the raw grief, the exhaustion, and the longing for compassion in the midst of relentless tragedy. What happens next? As the dust settles, GMB producers are reportedly considering a follow-up segment next week dedicated entirely to the Manchester synagogue attack and its aftermath. This time, the focus will be on voices from within the community: victims, faith leaders, and ordinary Mancunians grappling with fear and resilience. Whether Adil Ray will be asked to lead that conversation remains unclear. But one thing is certain: Friday's broadcast will be remembered as one of the most emotionally charged moments in GMB's recent history. For viewers, it was a reminder that beneath the polished scripts and studio lights, live television is unpredictable, and sometimes heartbreakingly real. A Remark meant to spotlight injustice instead highlighted the fragility of navigating tragedy on air. A star's tears turned a news segment into a national talking point. And once again, Good Morning Britain found itself at the center of the storm, reflecting a country still struggling to find the balance between anger and empathy.